So this afternoon, I'll be meeting some school friends of mine, so guys I went to secondary school with. So we did the Leaving Cert together, and we've kept in touch since. I went to college. I lived with one of them in college and baptized some of their children. I did only one of their weddings. But it's great when we meet up because it's 20 what? I shouldn't say. It's, wow, a long time since we've done our Leaving Cert. So they're all married with kids. So when we used to meet in our college days, obviously the topics of conversation were generally, music, sport, maybe ladies, maybe a little. But then after, obviously I went to seminary and they got married. I remember our first conversations when we'd meet up then were like, which cars are the safest and which have the biggest boots? Because we need to get like 2 walker, trolley, stroller things in. And the ISOFIX now in the Volkswagen aren't half as good as the ISOFIX now that I had in the Volvo. And it's all talk now about paternity. It's all talk about kids and families and where can you go for a day trip where there are plenty of stops on the way so the kids don't get bored and there are toilet stops and changing facilities and all these kind of things, Just they've changed, we've changed. We've all grown up, hopefully, a bit. But paternity, fatherhood has kicked in. They've realized that life isn't just about them anymore. When you're free and single, it's you go where you want, or even as a young couple, before children come along, you can just freely decide to go wherever you want, whenever you want, however you want, with whoever you want, if you want to go anywhere at all. Then kids come along and everything changes. Everything changes. And it's interesting, it's amazing, it's beautiful to see how, as young parents, priorities kick in very easily, very quickly, So what do we want for our children? The couple tend to work this one out fairly quickly. Like, we want to have a good standard of living for them. Want them to live in a safe environment. Want to go to good schools. Want them to get a good education. Or maybe for some other families, we want them to be good at sport. We want them to be popular. We want them to have a great relationship with their grandparents. Maybe that's a priority in certain families, Or we want them to be very open-minded. That can also be a priority in some families. So there are different priorities. And based on those values, the children are brought up. For the majority of those values, though, we don't leave it to chance or we don't leave it to society to work it out for us. When it comes to education, people might say, well, it'd be very, very rare for people to say, we'll keep the kids at home. I think it's actually illegal to say we'll keep the kids at home, won't give them education, let them work it out for themselves. Let them just kind of work out what they need. Yeah, but your kids will need to learn to read and write. Like they will need to know how to do basic maths. Otherwise, they're going to be taken for granted and defrauded, because they won't understand the world they live in, and people will take advantage of that. So when it comes to those kind of things, we're willing to put in effort. Certain people, if they have the resources, are willing to put in huge amounts of money. We did a retreat there 2 weekends ago for Youth 2000. We're gathered there in Clongowes Wood, which is a private Jesuit school. And I'm not sure what it is there per year to keep a student, maybe 16,000 euro, maybe more. But that's per year, per child. You might have 2 or 3 in the school at the time. But for certain families, this is a priority. Good education, good connections, networking, and so on. Okay, what's the point? When it comes to passing on the faith, this must be, I'm understating it by saying it must be a high priority. It should be the highest priority. It really should. Because whatever else we do, whatever else we teach, whatever else we communicate, that will pass in time. If they become successful and farmers, builders, plumbers, whatever it is, and do very well for themselves, great. But then eventually they're going to hit 80, 90, 95. And then I was in Italy there not so long ago, and in a city called Roseto, and there's a friend of a friend who started a refuse collection business, and he's a multi-millionaire. So he has this huge garage. It's a huge garage. It's about, I suppose, maybe kind of half football field sort of thing, full of old cars, right? So full of old, but I mean expensive cars. Not we're not talking Cinquecentos now. We're like full of, like, there was a Ferrari Testarossa which I sat in. There were Porsche 911s, GT3s. There were the DeLorean from Back to the Future. If you remember that movie, the DeLorean from Back to the Future is there. If you've seen the movie Bullet, the Ford Mustang, from I don't know, so like anyway, a garage full of these old cars. Now the guy himself is in his upper 80s, and he's got all these collected. And there's an awful lot of work in getting them imported, getting them up to speed, literally. Getting all the paperwork done, getting them. You have to register them and so on. There's a lot of paperwork in having an old car. When all that's done, he'll die. That's it. And that's it then, Big garage full of these old cars. And where'll they go? I don't know. The kids will fight over them, I suppose. And he'll probably, will them off to someone, but like the will be contested and yada yada, So like at the end of the day, like, all this effort and time and headspace and all of that, what on earth is it all for? What are our priorities? When it comes to the passing on of the faith, this must be a high priority. And dare I say, in Irish society, we've kind of delegated that to the wives, to the mothers. In our first reading today, we hear Joshua. Joshua was the man who led the Israelites back into the promised land. So Moses freed them from Egypt, but because they constantly complained against God and constantly doubted the Lord's goodness, constantly doubted the Lord's providence, that generation that were freed from Egypt did not get into the Holy Land. They wandered in the desert for 40 years. The next generation then, led by Joshua, get into the Holy Land. So that's the very short version of the story, but just so you know who Joshua is. But while through some great miracles and prodigies, the people were freed from Egypt, it took an awful lot of time, took a whole generation to get Egypt out of their hearts. They still tended towards idolatry. So Joshua, when they get into the Holy Land, he knows his people, and he knows their tendency to worship other gods, or to, well, if it's maybe hedge your bets. We have Yahweh, great, but just in case we can't have a child, let's make a little offering to the god of fertility as well, just in case. Cover your bases. This kind of thing would happen very often. So Joshua calls the people out on it, and he just wants to lead by example as the father of the people. If you will not serve the Lord, choose today whom you wish to serve, whether the gods of your ancestors, the gods that your ancestors served beyond the river, while the Israelites were in Egypt, or the gods of the Amorites, or those in the land you are now living. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. This is Joshua as a father saying, this is our priority. For me and my house, my family, we're going to serve the Lord. I'm not really responsible for your family. I can't do anything about it. You can serve whoever you want. But decide today, because there are consequences. This isn't a game. This isn't a game. And the reward or the consequences of this particular decision actually last forever. So as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. This is a father who's living his fatherhood, not in a way that's dominant or oppressive towards his wife or his children, but this must be a priority. So I'm going to lead the way. So that's what good fatherhood is. It's not just about threatening people that they must do what you say or else. But a good father leads by example. He leads the way. And this then gives great confidence to his wife that my husband is leading by example. How difficult it is for so many wives when they're trying to drag the kids to mass, and dad says, sure, look, they went last week, sure, just fine. Sure, just fine. Like, just give them a break, sure. But, then the mom's like, that's really not helping. So this must be a priority. In our second reading, so it's from the letter of St. Paul to the Ephesians. It's the reading I always choose. If a married couple ask me what readings would I like for the wedding, this is the one I choose. And it always raises eyebrows. I love it. Wives should regard their husbands as they regard the Lord. Since as Christ is the head of the church and saves the whole body, so is a husband the head of his wife. And as the church submits to Christ, so should wives submit to their husbands in everything. Now at this point you look down and all the girls with their Oompa Loompa cream on are sitting there with one eyebrow firmly raised, looking at their boyfriend going, don't you even think about it. All right? I love it. So, okay. But the thing is, and actually, a friend of mine was at a lecture recently. She's training to be a teacher. And the lecturer took this line. And see, it's always aimed to take a line of scripture out of context. We have to be so that's what we're going to do in a second. We're going to continue the context to get the whole picture. He took this line out of context, and she'd actually very subtly got her phone out and took a picture of the slide that the professor was showing. And I quote, so in sacred scripture we read, wives, submit to your husbands, children, obey your parents, what God has joined no man must separate. These texts were written in a specific time and in a specific context. Society is very different now. So this university professor is saying, yeah, all these things, even moral teachings, fluctuate or change with time. As far as I understood, murder is wrong and will always be wrong and always should be wrong. Rape is always wrong and always should be. When it comes to moral teachings do not change. As regards morality, what's good is good, what's bad is bad, and that it stays that way. As regards social norms, yes, there are social norms in Scripture that we don't have to follow anymore as regards how to build buildings, how to build temples, and so on. We don't have to follow those. But moral teaching, that doesn't change. Okay, back to our reading. Wives should love their husbands as Christ loved his church. Okay. Sorry, so wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Okay, now, the next bit is important and never gets quoted or doesn't seem to draw as much attention as that previous line, because we're so attuned now to especially that word submitting. Mamma mia, you hear that and we think this is disastrous, terrible stuff. Okay, read the next line. Husbands should love their wives as Christ loved the church and sacrificed himself for her. Husbands should love their wives as Christ loved his church. How did Christ love his church? He was betrayed, he was hated, he was beaten, he was arrested, he was stripped of his skin, he was crowned with thorns. The instrument of his own torture was loaded on his back. He was made drag it up a hill. He was nailed to it, and after 3 hours of agony, he died. Wives, I think you're getting off easy. This is what husbands are called. So if we're going to take that line about wives, take that line about husbands as well. Husbands are supposed to sacrifice themselves out of love for their families, especially our love for their wives. And if needs be, you die for them. Now, dying for them, if that's in one fell swoop, you hear some noise downstairs, you go down with your golf club, and there's a guy with a shotgun, and, the story ends pretty quickly. Okay, you've given your life for your family. That's almost easier, though, than giving your life on a daily basis for your family. Or you renounce your hobbies, you renounce going off to the pub every time there's some sort of a difficulty. You renounce going away every weekend to matches. But you spend quality time with your family. That's the kind of dying to yourself that we're talking about. Why? Because they're our priority. And getting them to heaven is our number one priority. So we don't leave that to chance, and we don't leave it to society to work it out for us. That's on us. And dare I say, that's on us fathers. That's on us men. In a priestly sense, to guide a parish, or for me here in Holy Family, in a biological sense, to guide your family to God. Because that is all that matters for all eternity. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So we ask the Lord today to renew our understanding of what it means to be fathers in a modern day society. It doesn't mean, obviously, to dominate or enslave, but it doesn't mean the opposite. It doesn't mean to be spineless and weak and just let everything go, so we'll see how it works out. Our number one priority must be the salvation of our own souls and of our families. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Amen.